there is a week of hectic preparation. Philemon keeps out of the way as best he can. Of course, she knows nothing of the strain he suffers from the moment he invented the punishment.
The director Peter Brook has spent a lifetime travelling in one sense or another, setting up an international theatre centre in Paris, then roaming from the Sahara Desert to Japan in search of stories to be told. Now, in his late 80s, he's still exploring. His latest show brings apartheid South Africa to London. It's called The Suit, a deceptively simple tale of adultery and simmering revenge set in a Johannesburg township. We met to discuss South Africa, theatre and the journeys Brook has been on in the last 8 decades, both physical and artistic. It's a story by Themba, South African writer. When did you first encounter it and what did you sense in it that made you want to do it as theatre?
The Suit is an extraordinary situation. I mean, it needed an amazing brain to invent it. And you could feel the unique creativity of Themba in this situation. A couple with this terrifying revenge that the husband is forced to impose on the wife that he loves and who loves him, but he cannot not do this terrible thing. I won't tell the story because that's what the whole play is about. But I'm sure that Themba, who could in other circumstances been a Chekhov, and Chekhov had a very tough view of life and so it all, but never anything like apartheid. And he needed that tremendous injustice to think up such a powerful and cruel story.
These lightning shifts of mood and tone and despite the fact that it seems quite blasé, almost there's something deep and tragic within it as well.
Yes. Well, but here, this is one of the big developments since Le Costume, which we originally did in our theatre in Paris and the Bouffe du Nord, brought here to
This is a 1999 production, your first version of it, yeah.
And there, in those days, where all theatres were riddled with angry agitprop, politically aware plays, the background of apartheid didn't need underlining. It was in the air. We didn't need to it. So we concentrated on the essential human story. In doing it again, now we found that we could develop it with the presence, not only of apartheid, but because of all that's going on at this very moment all over the world, the presence of all the ruthless, cruel dictatorships and regimes all over the world, where people at this very moment as we talk are suffering.
Often, you know, at least in this country, you're described as a director who has retreated from politics in a sense.
You know what journalism is. Journalism is the art of simplification, and that makes a good story, like the story that I suddenly turned my back on England and went off.
Yes, the other great Peter Brook story that you decamp to France.
Like that. No, I've always looked from my very first productions to follow what I've only found in Shakespeare, and then eventually before that in the Mahabharata, where you can bring together all the levels from the highest to the most everyday, and that those have to come together for you to feel that this is about reality. I have a horror of the word style. The moment there is a style, it's a prison.
What's striking is how, over nearly 70 years of making theatre, Peter Brook has pared things back to essentials. Once his shows featured acrobats or epic casts or lasted epic spans of time, 9 hours long for his version of the Mahabharata. Now his approach to theatre could best be crystallised in one word: simplicity.
Gradually, I began to be aware of the fact that the richest of all the tools you can use in theatre is the human being, and once you focus on that, you see not for a theoretical reason we must be simple, but gradually how much can just fall by itself. So we're never simple in early rehearsals. I believe in throwing all the junk possible onto the part and then filtering it. And so what people very nicely call simplicity is not a style, it's just the common sense which says, yes, take that away and it's a bit better.
It's a song, a beautiful song from Tanzania.
From Tanzania, yes. And it's called Malaika. It means my angel. And this is dedicated to each and every one of you out there who can never get what they want in life. Malaika, nakupenda malaika. Malaika, nakupenda malaika.
One musical presence enables us to tell a very tough, powerfully bitter story in a powerfully bitter situation, which, if we went all the way, would be going into what to me was the blockage of political theatre, which was making an angry audience leave the theatre even more angry. And that doesn't do any good to anyone.
And Peter, we're talking as you're bringing the Suit, a South African show, to London as part of the World Stages
Yes.
London Festival, which I suppose the idea is to bring many kinds of world theatre to London,
Yes.
which is a world city. I mean, you were kind of doing that 40 years ago, 45 years ago. I mean, you started travelling, I mean, I suppose particularly in Africa in the
Not
70s.
only in Japan and the Middle
And the Middle
East.
East and
Oh, yes,
India.
and India, yes.
What made you want to travel in the first place?
Well, that I've always, ever since I've travelled, I mean, that I always said that was my main profession for years and years.
Travelling.
The traveller. Simply, and it's as simple as this, I don't believe that any single one of us, even if we had Einstein sitting with us and some of the greatest pundits, I don't think that any single human being can possibly believe that they know it all. We're all tiny fragments of this immense jigsaw puzzle.
Peter Brook, thank you very much.
And you. Pleasure talking to you.